good learning experience.
You did A&R?
I did a lot of things. I did A&R, college and radio promotion. Did some of the artwork for some of the bands. I did logos because I was going to art school at the time. So I did a little of everything. I was multitasking then, and I was actually not only was I in high school at the time, but I was skateboarding to work because I didn't get my
really.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was another thing because Metal Blade was in Reseda, California, and I went to school in North Hollywood High. So imagine, if you're not familiar with the San Fernando Valley, yeah, I skateboarded to work quite a few times. So
that's not a short skateboard ride there.
No, I mean
I know the valley.
You know the valley.
Yeah.
I know the valley. But then eventually, okay, I took the bus. I have no shame in saying that, but yeah, I didn't have a car for a long time. But getting to work, had to do it.
Yeah. Well, the bus is everyone's friend at some point in their life. I don't care who it is. Everyone's got a bus story.
No doubt.
So, did you sign anybody, or?
Well, I was part of the Metal Massacre folklore. That compilation is what Brian started out putting bands on when he started Metal Blade Records. He was a fan himself, and then he did a fanzine, and then he eventually formed Metal Blade Records basically out of his garage, his mom's garage. And then when he put together the label, he put together Metal Massacre, and that has been a continuing series of a compilation that just has up and coming bands that eventually go on to record on the label. So for me, I kind of sort of started with Metal Massacre 7. That was kind of when I kind of got started. Flotsam and Jetsam was sort of like a influence because we sort of talked about it. I just said, well, the name's kind of stupid, but they're kind of heavy, and not too much metal's coming out of Arizona kind of at the time. But later on with Metal Massacre 8 through 10, those were me.
Okay.
So on those bands, Banshee, who were from St. Louis. I should know, it's been so many years. Banshee from St. Louis, who put out an EP. They went on to be signed to Titanium Atlantic. Sacred Reich, also from Arizona. Goo Goo Dolls, which was a very left-of-center signing, and still a sore spot whenever that name comes up. Because they went on to be multi-millionaires and sell millions of records on Warner Brother Records. So I think if not for the connection with Metal Blade, Warner Brothers may not have picked up Goo Goo Dolls at the time. Now Death Records was sort of our punk imprint label. We had Corrosion Conformity, The Mentors, Beyond Possession, Dr. No, DRI, those Cryptic Slaughter. So those are some of the punk bands, so to speak, on the Death Records label. So when Goo Goo Dolls were signed, we sort of worked them in there, just because they weren't a metal band.
Right.
They were sort of like a cross between the Replacements and the Ramones. So, but yeah, out of all the bands that I worked with and signed, I would say Sacred Reich and the Goo Goo Dolls would be my most proud signings.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's not shabby, man.
Well,
people know who those bands are, so.
True. I would have loved a point on one of those Goo Goo Doll records.
Right.
That I'd own this town.
Right. Yeah. So, you didn't want to stay in the music industry after that? You didn't want to stay at labels, or?
No. What ended up happening was 5 years at Metal Blade, I got an opportunity to actually move up. Move up with myself in the biz. I got an offer to work at Capitol Records. And that fell in my lap through a series of events, but just cutting to the chase, they were starting up a new regime in 1990, and they sort of cleared out the old A&R department, and that's kind of like the usual case, especially with record companies. It's probably the same for film companies, but I know the music business, and one thing is you can expect a pink slip at some point. You're as good as your last signing. So, but I started at Capitol Records in 1990 and was part of that A&R team. It was a bit of an uphill battle. I mean, there was prestige being on the 10th floor at that round building at Hollywood and Vine, but in that department, not a lot of rock and rollers, not a lot of metalheads. And this is a label that not only absorbed Enigma Records.
Yeah, with Poison and
With Poison and Stryper and the Smithereens and just all these other groups. But on Capitol Records already, along with Poison, there was Great White, there was Wasp, there was Iron Maiden, Megadeth. You know, I'm probably leaving out a couple acts, but one act that was on the label that I ended up doing the A&R for was Exodus.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and that was the release Impact is Imminent. Now, they were technically signed by Rachel Matthews at the label at the time, but when I found out that Exodus were on the label, I was really gung-ho. Oh, and Megadeth. I left out Megadeth, and that was the other one. But all those bands were already self-contained. They were already on the label. They were sort of just running on full speed. But with Exodus, I got to sort of take that from start to finish, and it was great. It was great. It was hard to sign anything there because you had more people to answer to. At Metal Blade, it was just Brian, but with Capitol, man, a lot of departments. Not just the A&R department, the promotion, the radio, the retail, all these different departments, and then you had the regional promotion people involved. You had the New York office. You sort of had to get everyone on the same page, and that's why we had weekly meetings to talk about all these different groups. But again, another learning experience, the good, the bad, and the ugly. The one band I did sign, and so kind of a theme, me signing non-metal bands, like I did with Goo Goo Dolls, the Butthole Surfers.
Oh, it's another out of Texas.
Out of Texas.
Yeah.
Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
And the reason I got a green light with the Butthole Surfers was the president at the time, Harold Milgram. He's a big Deadhead fan, and the Butthole Surfers were sort of that band in that genre where they had a lot of crazy followers. They were sort of a psychedelic, trippy band, but they rocked. They had good, solid, tricked out songs, and they put on a good show for what they were doing. And then lo and behold, after meeting after meeting, and then the label head seeing them, they were signed. And the big coup de grace with the Butthole Surfers and Capitol Records, I got, well, it wasn't just me, but it was a lot of people involved. John Paul Jones
Really?
produced their first record.
Wow.
Produced that first record on Capitol. Now, at that point, I was moving on. That's when when I mentioned the pink slip, this is where the pink slip part comes in. It's around 93. That's when they sort of cleaned house. But yeah, so Capitol Records, and then long period of just trying to get back in the biz. But no. And I signed bands that they went on to do very well, but just didn't pan out.
Well, how do you see the metal thing now? Being here at KNAC, do you see a lot of really cool bands being signed and their music being sent to you guys here? Or?
Yeah, we still get submissions. I mean, I get submissions sent via email, and I still get packages sent here to the studio. And it's from bands from all over the world. They'll send me their link, their MySpace link, which is great. That's the quickest way I can hear something brand new right out the gate, because, Metal Blade and Capitol Record days, working in A&R, it would be boxes and boxes and boxes of demo tapes.
Right.
And Pure Rockers, I'm talking about cassette tapes. This is pre-CD.
Right.
So imagine there's a lot of cassettes. But yeah, I still see bands, locally and abroad, and there's a lot of good stuff out there. A lot of good stuff. The labels that are still thriving, Metal Blade Records, Nuclear Blast, Century Media. And there's a lot of the German labels and whatnot, and they're still around. They're still active. So the scene is still healthy. It never really went away. It went through phases, as we all do in life. Went through that grunge phase in the mid-'90s. Very few metal bands, at least here in America, were still churning out decent records. But metal scene never really died away. It's just that pop and rap and techno and all this other stuff sort of took over. Took over the airwaves, took over MTV, took over the magazines, the record stores. There's that small knit of people, that underground, that, again, never went away. You can find these releases in just good word of mouth. And I think just and going back to what we were talking about, embracing the technology, MySpace, Facebook, websites, it's a quick access for bands to have their music heard by anybody, as opposed to flying in some A&R guy, having them see you in some rehearsal hall or garage, and you play 3 or 4 songs, and okay, we'll get back to you. Thank you. Like, in my opinion, there should be no need for that anymore. You know, bands just send an electronic press kit and just get it out there. You know, sort of a do-it-yourself work ethics. That's one thing that I always will tell bands, especially the ones that I see time and time again. Yeah, there's just a lot of good bands out there, not only in America but in Europe. So keep them coming. Keep them coming.
Cool. Are we doing good on time or?
Oh yeah, we're
okay.
we're doing good.
Okay.